The Radio Wemo Breakfast.
Kiwi.
Well, we're hearing a lot about the government broadband plan, where they have a bunch of money and they want to give it to a company or companies to start rolling out some decent broadband infrastructure here in New Zealand. But what are we going to use this broadband for? What are people going to be getting on the internet and doing? How is it going to be helpful to the economy? Well, one of the companies who is looking at doing this have put together a campaign called Fibre to the Door. You might have seen it if you've been in Auckland City. Some very funny ads actually, where people are watering their garden with a straw or the hose. The hose, of course, being the broadband pipes, the fibre. Or the straw, which is currently what we have. Simon Mackenzie is going to help us a little bit more, explain this a little bit more from Vector Energy. He's the CEO, and he was at a Comms Day Auckland Summit yesterday where he gave a bit of a speech on this. Simon, good morning to you.
Hi, Glenn. How are you?
Very, very good. Now, I just wonder if you could help us explain, because even I find this puzzling, that the government has this money set aside where they are going to be investing in broadband infrastructure. And at the moment, they're going through a process of deciding who they're going to give it to. Now, are they going to give it to one company to start rolling out the infrastructure?
Oh, look, the model is that they've divided up the country into a number of regions, and each of those regions, people in those regions, such as other electricity companies or people that are already running fibre networks, put in a proposal to the government, and they through what's known as Crown Fibre Holdings, they'll choose who the best party is to roll out the fibre to those communities in the various regions across the country.
Okay, so the campaign, the publicity campaign that Vector has at the moment, is that to sway public opinion, to force the government to give some money to Vector to do this? How's that working?
No, look, it's really about we saw the need to raise the debate and raise people's understanding. I think, as you mentioned, there's a fair bit of confusion around what is fibre going to actually do for the country, and also for when these fibre networks get rolled out, then people understand the benefits that they can that fibre will bring to either their business, their school, their community services or the likes. And, so there's demand there, so when the fibre network's available, people will want to be connected up to it. I think, to put it in context, the Commerce Commission in New Zealand identified, I think, the average speed in Auckland was something like 8 megabits per second. And if you look at other economies, such as Korea and everything, they're at 100 megabits per second. That's both download and upload, and they're moving to a gigabit per second.
Now, most people would say that at the moment they can watch a YouTube video, or they can get a large file in pretty much a timely manner. Do we really need anything much faster than what we have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we just look at the change of technology, it was only about 5 years ago that Telecom was saying people only needed 2 megabits per second or 3 megabits per second, and now we're seeing globally people saying you need about a gigabit per second. New technology coming on stream like 3D TV, and then particularly in the business market, being able to actually set up business in New Zealand and sell your products over the fibre networks both in Australia and New Zealand without any speed problems or download problems. Just to give an indication, in France at the moment, the OECD identified that the price of a typical good fibre service over there was about 5 times less than what the equivalent would be in New Zealand. But you also have in New Zealand data caps which are not in place in countries such as France and other countries in Asia. So, if you just think of computers and you think of all the technology that's being put into computers, mobile phones, just that rate of growth is huge.
Is the problem here that none of us are very good crystal ball gazers, and we don't actually know what the potential use is? We just know that there probably will be a potential use.
I think two things. I think there's not enough awareness about what is actually going on in countries such as the Asian countries and up in Stockholm. I was in Stockholm, for example, in a business up there, had a video on demand service where they're putting it over fibre to customers. Those people ran that business with 3 people, and the unit was about the size of a fridge. So, this has provided something like 250,000 customers. But alternatively, I think, we've been living in a very constrained broadband environment in New Zealand, and we don't know what we don't know. And I think lots of Kiwis come back from overseas and say they experience broadband here, and they just about cry, most of them, I think.
I suppose it's like one of those things. If you've been living with an ordinary sort of phone for many years, you get a smartphone, then you wonder how you ever lived without the without the smartphone, and how you lived with the ordinary phone.
Absolutely, absolutely the same. And I think the other thing to put in context here is Australia's going to spend $43 billion, the government there, on rolling out fibre to the door in Australia. To put an analogy there, in 5 or 7 years' time, we don't need to have that ad like on TV with regards to they got the minerals and we got the pineapple lump. Yeah. It's that kind of context. We've got to keep pace with Australia and the rest of the Asia-Pacific Rim, where we basically transact and live and work.
And just to wrap up, in your speech yesterday, you used Lara Bingle as some kind of example. How did you weave Lara Bingle into your speech?
The reality was, as I said, the Australians are going to be spending $43 billion, and I guess reading the report that was put together by consultants in Australia for the Australian government became very clear that, they've made a decision, they're going to build that fibre. And so you kind of push your mind forward 5 or 7 years and say, well, the worst case scenario would be for the Australians to have fibre to their door, new retailers. It's a platform that people can grow businesses off. And the last thing we'd need is for the Australians to be sitting there saying, where the bloody hell are you, with New Zealand still on copper. So that's how it came to be.
Simon Mackenzie, CEO of Vector, thanks very much for chatting to us about it
this
morning.
Ben.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers.
Yes, indeed. Will we draw the short straw? That's a very good question. Now, it's now 25 minutes away from 8. Here is a track from Night Choir. This here is called Glass Tiger. It's Kiwi.